struggling with my sexuality. I think there was a lot of like, why, and like, I don't want this to happen. And I loved ice hockey. I think soccer was my true love. And then once I like hit 6th grade, that's when I switched to football. And I loved football too. Like I was just like a physical kid. Like I like to like bang into people. That was just in basically a homophobic environment. Like I wasn't living at all. I was just like checking boxes, needed help. But I think that I felt like I couldn't fully like express what I was going through. I don't think I really knew what I was going through at that time. So I remember my senior year being really lonely, like eating lunch by myself. I remember doing that. And like that was like really terrible. Like in college, I had the first thought of like, oh, I might be gay. It got pretty bad where went to the doctor a couple times. I had to like leave college for a week or so just to be home. And this was all stemming from like suppressing my sexuality and not being like full expression of who I am. That started kind of like a journey of working with you, Dave. You helped me come out like publicly, which was another huge step for me. Life is so much better with people like supporting you and loving you, and being open to that and giving love is like something that just increases the enjoyment of life like exponentially.
Hello and welcome back to the Good Life Lab. I'm Dr. Dave, and this channel is all about sharing clues, tools, and tales for improving our lives in some way, even in a small way. I'm a positive psychology researcher, therapist, and former college professor turned content creator. I'm going to share some of my research, the things that have helped me personally, but also my clients. And that's the purpose of this channel. For those tuning in because you've watched the Heated Rivalry series that I've done, you'll see some of the same themes in this episode, and ongoing conversations with my colleague Seamus as he's continuing to navigate coming out. He's been on this 2-year journey of coming out and still working towards embracing himself as a gay man, as I am, even though I've been out for a long time, I have a partner. There's still dynamics around what it's like to embrace myself as a gay man. And so I hope you enjoy these conversations with Seamus. If you haven't seen the first episode, I'm taking him through this compass process, this coaching process that I've developed, and things that I've used myself to help me navigate identity and challenges, but that also I'm introducing to other people. And so I'm walking him through those different steps of that process. I call them coordinating points. There are 7 coordinating points in this process. We do assessments around those different points and exercise and conversations to help you tune into what those coordinating points are for you, and then craft a good life project that will help you implement your desires, your strengths, and values in some way. So that's a quick overview of what the compass process is about. So I hope you can tune in over the next several weeks in my conversation with Seamus as I walk him through this process and see what unfolds for him. He is, like I said, 2 years into embracing himself as a gay man and still navigating those dynamics and what it's like for him. And I'm really excited for him, kind of where he's ended up as we've talked through this process and what he's planning to do to embrace his identity even more over the next several months. So please stay tuned if you would. So I just mentioned briefly that C in the compass framework stands for clues and coordinating points. And that's all about tuning into messages in everyday events, things that come across our path, themes that we see coming up in our lives, internal nudges, things that are kind of moving us in a certain direction, as well as external experiences that we're paying attention to. So that's what the clues and coordinating points are all about. It's paying attention to what's going on inside us and around us. The O in the compass framework stands for origin story and heroic journey. And it's really all about kind of what's happened to us and where we want to go from here. And so that's the framework that I'm talking with Seamus about. So the O is really about your beginnings, your early messages, the formative chapters throughout your life, the highs, the hurts, the elixirs, lessons learned, the stories you've told about yourself, consciously or unconsciously. We're not rewriting your history yet. We're simply noticing the narrative, kind of the story you've told yourself. So in this episode, Seamus and I begin to unpack the first part of O, which is origin story. Next time is going to be the heroic journey, the adventure that we're on. And as we go, remember, this series is also part of this Compass Quest contest that I've created that has you collect clues along the way and submit at the end of March for one of 3 prizes.
All right. So
Good to see you again, Seamus, and thanks for joining me for this. We did the C for clues and coordinating points last time. Any thoughts from the last conversation over this last week? Any recurring themes or things that have come up since then related to that first point?
Nothing. I mean, there was a couple things where like Colorado came up a little bit about like thinking about graduate school, and there's a school out there that I wanted to check out, and a couple people were just mentioning how cool Colorado was. So I was just aware of that and keeping tabs on that. But other than that, I would just say like nothing more than that I can recall off the top of my head.
Okay, yeah, and kind of put you on the spot. I agree. Colorado, if you've been out to Colorado
I
before,
have not,
oh,
no.
okay. So maybe just a visit out there just to see.
Mhm.
But yeah, when I think of Colorado and I think of you and what you like, it's a perfect match. And being an outdoor, outdoors kind of guy.
Yeah, yeah, it would again like I spent a lot of time outside with friends like hiking this weekend, and it was kind of just like a nice, I guess, a continuing breadcrumb of making time in nature and enjoying that and spend time with friends has been just a consistent theme
Mm.
the past months.
Hmm. It's great when because I feel the same way when you have the connections are really important to me, but also being outside. So bringing friends into the outdoors is just even better, having those meaningful conversations in the outdoors.
Yes, it's definitely my happy place.
Yeah. Have you been, do you like skiing?
I've never skied, which is
Okay.
interesting. I played ice hockey, so I think like
Oh,
have some like ability, but I've just never done it.
yeah. So yeah, Colorado is great for that. So yeah, this time is we talked about C last time. This time is going to be O and compass, which stands for origin story and heroic journey. And I've given you a couple exercises to do. Before we get into that, I just want a couple foundational principles. A few things about the power of story, the importance of story. I don't know, before we get into some of the research, what are your thoughts, Seamus, from your own life and the importance of narrative or story in your life?
I think it's one of the biggest tools that we can use and that I've used in my life. I think when we're in the struggle of something, our story is a lot different. It's kind of like, why is this happening to me? Or this is so hard. Like especially for like struggling with my sexuality, I think there was a lot of like why and like I don't want this to happen. And then once you like seek help and want to kind of accept the reality of what's going on, and you look back on those times where it was challenging and it was hard and you fought through it, I think the story changes so much to like for my in my case like a lot of gratitude for the struggle and the challenge, and realizing that like that part of my life was really foundational in who I am today. But the story that I was telling about that earlier was this one of like frustration and anger and sadness and loneliness. And then the story now that I have like some ability to look back on it and have a different perspective of it is like night and day difference.
Hmm.
I think knowing that and being able to change the story kind of like in the moment is really powerful for me,
Hmm.
and I think it's helpful.
So I think you're saying that kind of you've been able to reframe some of what's happened in your life or what you've been through.
Yep, exactly. Like reframing like the it's perspective and reframing, but like the struggle of coming out was definitely a story that was like painful and hard, and something that was hard for me to accept. And now looking back on it, I can tell the story of like perseverance and being strong in those situations, and a story of like rebirth and a story of full expression and
Hmm.
and my own and being happy.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, it kind of captures a lot of some of the stuff I wanted to just mention as foundation for the kind of theory or research around this, the importance of story. Psychologist Dan McAdams talks about narrative identity, which is, I think, sort of what you're talking about. It's the evolving story you tell yourself about who you are
Mhm.
and where you've been and where you're headed. And when that story feels like it makes sense or is coherent, when you see it through the eyes of, yeah, growth and redemption, which I think you've done more recently. Um, you Research shows that you experience greater well-being and happiness and life satisfaction when you're able to reframe it that way. And
Mhm.
so it's one kind of foundational concept. Narrative therapy, is that something that you're familiar with?
No,
Okay.
no.
It's another model or approach that's been developed. Mike White and David Epstein are the two guys that kind of brought it together. And what a core concept is that the person isn't the problem is the problem you kind of externalize.
Mhm.
It's not you as inherently. It's that issue. And sometimes I think we think of our lives as these kind of problem saturated stories, and being able to step outside that and see our life as a story that we can begin to author or reauthor or rewrite in some way, which is what you've kind of been doing, reframing it. There's a lot of power in that. And that's kind of the heart of narrative therapy. So we'll get into the first part of the origin story and heroic journey is the origin story. And so we'll probably just do that today. And that exercise is, again, kind of backed by another Stanford professor, Andrew Huberman, talks about in his one of his YouTube series, talks about this. He calls it the lifetime narrative tool. And it's very much what I've used, and I call it the highs, hurts, and elixirs. And this is breaking your life up into segments. And I think you said did you do it by period of kind of not so much years, but
Yeah, I did 0 to 7 years old, 7 to 14 years old, and then from 14 I did 14 to 18, which was high school, and then I did 18 to 22, which was college, and then 22 to 26, which
okay.
is now.
So good. You kind of broke it up in different time frames based on well, the phase of your life, kind of.
Yep, yep.
And by doing this exercise, so Huberman identifies a few things that happen based on research. So you begin to see patterns in your life more clearly when you do this kind of exercise we're talking about. You understand how you've grown and changed over time, um, and you reframe your self narrative in a more coherent and often more positive way. And then just you gain perspective on your current situation within the broader context of your story. So there's some of the things we're getting at with this exercise that I call highs, hurts, and elixirs. And so let's just walk through that. I'll take some notes as we talk.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave. Yeah, so 0 to 7 years old. I wrote that I was born into a family that loved me. So I was the first grandchild I on my mom's side, and then like the third on my dad's side. So we had both grandparents like there for my birth, and I just felt a lot of like overwhelming love from
Uh,
both sides and a lot of aunts and uncles. And I think that I'm so blessed in so many ways because I have always kind of felt that safety blanket of family, um, where it kind of gives me like a confidence in life. And I just remember my mom like being very loving and like taking me on like nature walks and being in like flower beds. Like I was looking at
hmm,
my baby pictures and like just very, well, like it seemed like a very happy like 0 to 7. And it's interesting because I don't remember all that much
hmm,
of it. Which is something that I would say maybe is a little bit of a low, kind of just like a vague idea and feelings and abstract
hmm,
thoughts of it. But kind of what I took away from it is that like safety blanket and that confidence in the world.
hmm.
And so that was 0 to 7.
Okay, so It's you most of your memories, or a lot of memories sound like the from pictures that you have. Like that's where
Hmm.
your more clearest memories are from the pictures.
Hmm.
But the
Yep.
feeling of you have of general feeling of safety and love and warmth when you think about it.
Yes. And I think I should also note that like my mother was 18 when she had me, so I think that was like
Mm,
it was so good for her to have like our support from our grandparents because she was really just a kid, and I think that was probably very stressful for her.
mm,
Uh, and I know that like I think both things were true. Like, but one, just the overwhelming love, and also a little bit of like stressfulness and anxiety of like how are we going to take care of this child?
mm,
Uh, and I think all of that combined, I think, is kind of that experience.
mhm. Okay.
And then from 7 to 14, I think is when I really dove into the identity of like sports. My dad was very like he just loved sports, and his kind of goal was to be there for me and be a present dad because he didn't have that as a kid. Like I know just it's been a story that he's shared of like wanting to play catch with his dad and not having that ability. So some
Mm,
of my favorite memories are like him having a pass with me and teaching me how to throw a football and coaching um, my soccer team and driving me to hockey practice and just
mm,
like really fully invested in that aspect of who I was. So I really like bought into that and
mm.
I liked it. Other
Yeah,
highlights were
during that time, I know you played. Would you play in college?
I played lacrosse in college.
Lacrosse. What was that starting to probably emerge at that time? What was?
I was super into soccer growing up. Um, and I loved ice hockey. I think soccer was my true love. And then once I like hit sixth grade, that's when I switched to football. And I
Mm,
loved football too. Like
mm.
I was just like a physical kid. Like I like to like bang into people. That was my thing. Um, and then another highlight was like my grandma. She helped me like write a story on the computer. I remember that being like a really sweet thing. And like she introduced me to like Shirley Temple, which is like I remember loving watching that too as a kid. Um, and um one
Which is
other highlight.
really, I mean, I grew up with Shirley Temple, so for I guess for your grandma to like, I guess we're closer to age than we are, but to her to introduce you to that, that's kind of funny.
Yeah, yeah, like and also like Sound of Music, like all
Mm.
like classics. I think she helped me I don't know, just enjoy those things. The other I would say like some of the low lights were like seeing like my parents kind of struggling to get by. Like my dad worked two jobs for a little bit. My parents were young and they would fight sometimes. So just seeing that, I think affected me a little bit. And then I remember like 7 to 14, I really struggled to sleep. And then so I guess some of the like elixirs or things that I took away, I guess like sports were a big part of it. My parents were kind of like I would always go to my parents if I needed help, but I think that I felt like I couldn't fully like express what I was going through. I don't think I really knew what I was going through at that time. Um,
With the nightmares and sleep.
yeah, like there were really like intimidating like ghost stories and like scary things that I just probably didn't fully share.
Mm.
So I think that kind of like maybe sets the stage for things later on. Just thinking about it right now, actually.
It's so the first time you made that connection right now. So what happened between
Mhm.
that period and later on?
Yeah.
So what was the elixir from that time?
I think it was like sports being kind of like a like a safe space and like where I felt really comfortable and like excelled. And then uh kind of like struggling to share my experience of like not being able to sleep and having nightmares.
So that's kind of a lesson learned from that time. That's
Mhm.
pulled from that. Okay. All right.
Um, yeah. And then so 14 to 18 was high school. I felt really confused, I think in a lot of senses. This is where I like was starting to wonder about my sexuality. Um, I had my first girlfriend in sophomore year and like it wasn't, I don't know, it just wasn't like, it didn't maybe feel 100% right. But this is where I really like turned to like books and YouTube to kind of try to like understand myself in the world. And I spent a lot of time learning on my own, which I'm like really grateful for. I continued to excel in sports. I kind of took on like the personality of like sports and like didn't care too much about school. And like would like party on the weekends and things like that. So I guess like some of the lowlights was smoking weed and getting in trouble at school for
Mm,
smoking weed. That was a big event in my life. It was like
mm.
very um I don't want to use the word traumatic, but it was just a big learning lesson of like, oh, um and I kind of had this feeling like the school was like a little bit out to get me just because of like some of like my uncles and parents like had some whatever reputation I think, and I think I just like thought I had that reputation.
Mm, mm.
So that was something that I think I worked through in high school. And then
Does that affects sports at all when you're in?
yeah, I like definitely like took like my sophomore year when I started smoking, like I was a lot I like could barely catch the lacrosse ball just because like I would guess like the night before I would like smoke weed and I would still be like in a fog the next morning and like I remember my coach being like, Seamus, like what's going on? So yeah, definitely affected that. And just like it affects your like drive to like want to succeed and things like that.
Mm,
Yeah, so senior year in high school, I had a falling out with my best friend who I had was like a best friend for like since 6 years old. And that was a really traumatic event because that involved my sister, and my sister and I also had a falling out. So I remember my senior year being really lonely, like eating lunch by myself. I remember doing that, and like that was like really terrible. Like I just felt like not great about that. So those were probably like the low lights. I guess the highlights were like sports still. I guess those were the highlights, like doing well in sports and getting recognized, and that was like exciting. And um what I kind of took away from that was that like negatively like not to trust people. And then I also learned like I really enjoyed learning like on my own about what interests me and like using books and YouTube as a way to try to understand the world.
and so it sounded like from okay, yeah, you mentioned that the highs or one of the during that time you spent a lot of time learning about kind of your what you're going through, your identity and things that you're wondering about. You spent a lot of time reading and watching YouTube videos during that time.
Yeah. And
So,
it was like less about like learning about my identity. It was more about like strategies to like manage like basically like sadness. Like I got
okay.
really into, like stoicism and like philosophy and like just trying to find models to like manage the emotions that I was feeling, but I didn't even really understand what I was feeling. I just was
Mm,
like, why do I why am I not like happy, I guess?
mm, mm. And that you didn't at the time you didn't really make the connection between your identity, your sexual identity and happiness or
No,
okay.
definitely not. I did not I didn't like I think I would like there was like definitely some indicators, but I wasn't even like ready at that point to like think about that I was gay. Like it didn't really compute in my brain at that time. Like I
Mm,
just
mm,
even yeah. I remember like yeah. In college I had the first thought of like, oh, I might be gay. That was
mm,
college. So
mm. Okay. Anything else for that 14 to 18?
um no, not really. Those were yeah. And then from 18 to 22, that was college, and the highs were being voted team captain. That was something I was really proud of. Being someone that people like looked up to and thought like I was working hard and doing the right things was something that really gave me a lot of satisfaction. And then the two other things that were highlights were like developing close friendships with my roommates. I think like that was something that I really enjoyed and was something I was maybe missing a little bit and towards the end of my high school. So having like best friends in college was awesome. And I loved playing lacrosse. Like practicing was, I always was saying like being on the lacrosse field was my happy place. There
Mm,
was no place I'd rather be. I always said that.
mm,
Um,
mm.
and some of the low points for those years were I struggled a lot with anxiety. Like so much so that it was like a physical manifestation. I had a lot of like pain in my chest and um really high blood pressure and just like it got pretty bad where I had like went to the doctor a couple times. I had to like leave college for a week or so just to be home. And this was all stemming from like I guess looking back on it, my like suppressing my sexuality and not being like full expression of who I am.
Mm.
And then another low point was breaking my foot the start of my senior year. That was like extremely devastating.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Um,
Lacrosse is that a fall sport?
it's a spring sport, so
Okay.
I broke it like in February, I think.
Uh,
So
okay.
like right at the start of the season.
Oh.
And yeah, it was a bummer. And like I regret like how I handled it also. Like I was still a team captain, but I just like completely checked out. Like
Mm, mm,
was had no desire to like help the team in any way and like it's something that I'm not proud of.
mm.
What I kind of learned from that was that like the environment that you're in is so important. Like I was in an environment that wasn't easy for me to be myself or um just in a basically a homophobic environment and I'm really so grateful to my past self that I didn't do a fifth year of college because with COVID, everyone had like additional years of eligibility for sports, and a lot of my classmates did a fifth and sixth year, and I'm really glad that I didn't do that.
Ah,
So
because
the
why are you glad?
because I think that that next year, like I just was able to go to therapy that year and like come out to my therapist, come out to my family as gay, and that was like a big kind of relief.
So that probably you don't think that would have happened if you stayed longer and
Oh,
played.
I think it would have, yeah, I would have just delayed it a year or
Mm,
two.
mm, mm,
Or who knows, maybe longer. I don't know. But
mm.
yeah, really glad I didn't go back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which is
so that was
interesting. It's
18.
just to think back on that because you're that's the lacrosse. A lot of people would like that was your favorite thing to do. So you
It is
kill to be
interesting.
able to play one more year, and yet it's more important for you to and be able to have the time to come out and lean into your orientation and stuff. So
Yeah, and it's interesting, kind of like again, like the stories change so much because that year after college, like that was a really tough year for me. Like
mm,
I was living with my parents and basically like went to work, worked out, and then went to bed at like 8 p.m. every day. And
Mm.
like was just like in this like very like regimented, like strict, like I wasn't living at all. I was just like checking boxes.
Mm.
But I was brave enough to go to therapy and like realize that the way I was living was not great. But like I potentially could have had more fun going back to college. I don't know. But
Okay.
I like in the long run, like it was definitely the right call.
Yeah, that's true. That's an unknown. It may have gotten worse or broken your leg again or something, anything could have happened. Like,
Right. Yeah.
hmm.
So yeah, that was 18 to 22, 22 to 26, which is kind of the period that I'm in now. Um, Definitely a lot more highlights, which is awesome.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I came out as gay like 23 when I was 23 or 22. First to my I realized the first person I came out to was an acupuncturist, which I think is interesting. Just a random lady, a super nice lady that I um, just needed support, and she was the first person I told. And then I told my parents and Fiona, or I told my sister first, and then my parents, with the help of a therapist back in Philadelphia, which was awesome. Like big highlight, and really proud of that. And then another highlight was moving to Cincinnati. And then that started kind of like a journey of working with you, Dave. You helped me come out like publicly, which was another big step for me. And that really helped me find like a community that I've continued to cultivate till now, and like have so many friends that know me for like a lot of who I am. And I've been able to join a church community that's super loving and accepting, and part of a gym community. So I think the past like year and a half have been kind of a highlight of just connections and people and community, and like being my full self, which has been amazing. Um, and then some of the lows have been um, still struggling with identity. I think coming out is such a process. At least it has been for myself. Like you kind of come out like almost daily. Like there's always choices of like fully expressing yourself versus not. Um, and I think there's even like certain months where I'm feeling more confident in being out and gay versus like some months where maybe I don't share everything I did on the weekend or things like that. So it's still like that self-acceptance and like expression is still like something that I'm working on. And then other lowlights have just been like trying to stick with something like career or like a purpose or like a profession, I think has been something that I'm working towards. Yeah. So those are kind of the things. And then what I've taken away from this is like really just how important community is, and the
Hmm.
people around you is so important. And I think I've had this idea that I can do everything alone and that like I'll be okay by myself. But this period of life has taught me that like life is so much better with people like supporting you and loving you, and being open to that and giving love is like something that just increases the enjoyment of life like
Hmm.
exponentially.
Hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting way to think of it because I think there's a lot that we can do on our own and be successful, and people do. Probably most people I feel like they're solo, in this life by themselves.
Hmm.
But how much more enjoyable it is and more fulfilling and more, even be more successful when you're connected to other people in the process too.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a fine balance, I think, of like of being alone and being supported in community, because I think if you're not, it's a dangerous slope to not be content by yourself and alone.
Hmm.
Uh, but there needs to be that balance. I feel like I'm happiest when I have a good balance of like community and space alone and time to think and reflect and create.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Yep.
So that goes up to current present day. As you look back over, and I don't know if this is part of the exercise I gave you or not, but as you look back over all your 26 years now, any major themes that you noticed throughout?
Sports and movement have been a pretty consistent theme, and it's kind of been a way where I've connected with people and had relationships. But it's also one that hasn't given me like the maybe the depth of relationship that I'm looking for, which is interesting. I kind of just have really thought about that now.
So the sports and movement, like lacrosse and other
Being on
activities.
a lacrosse team, like playing sports in high school, playing sports with my dad, and then here being like a in the fitness community, like in each stage of my life, it's been pretty constant thing. And I think, yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any other themes.
So the constant theme is that you've been involved in these things and enjoying them, but you said that it doesn't necessarily mean that you're finding fulfillment and connecting with people while you're doing that. Is that what I heard?
I think that's pretty fair. I think that there's it has got like with Finley movement, the connection is definitely deeper than it has been
Mhm.
and not any other like sports or fitness environment, which I'm really grateful for. One of the themes that I didn't really mention thoroughly in like this, but I've just noticed a pattern of in myself, at least like the last like maybe 4 or 5 years, is this pattern of like um starting over or like continuing to do new things like with jobs or I guess jobs specifically and like maybe even relationships in a way like high school relationships were there, college relationships were there, and they've all kind of like stayed there. Like I haven't continued those relationships.
Mhm.
Um, and that's just something that I've been aware of and want to keep in mind of like when I make decisions of like, am I starting over for what reason, I guess. So that's been a theme that I've noticed recently. But I don't, that's not throughout the whole,
Mhm.
yeah.
Just trying to be mindful of what what compels you to start over, and then also what are you leaving behind? Or are you missing something by leaving that behind?
Mhm.
Do you
And
want
to be
to?
fair, like each time I've started over, it has gotten better.
Mhm.
Something to note, I think. And then I guess one theme that maybe has been consistent is this feeling of like being like a little bit alone, like with while still having a lot of people around me, and like this idea of being always being like regarded like high status socially, maybe, but still maybe not having like deep friendships or relationships and even if I did maybe still feeling alone in some sense. And like still like a feeling that I feel even with all this community and friendship, there's still like these moments where I just feel like a little bit alone. And I think that's been a theme, one of the deepest themes that I've felt, which is like I can also say like I've also felt like a theme of like continued love and support, but in that still feeling this like sense of maybe loneliness in some ways.
That's a great, I guess, realization or observation. And I wonder, I think about myself too, in that I think I've gotten feeling less alone most of the time, but I still have periods of my life, my year, my week when I feel alone. Like I feel isolated or not connected. But I think that the overall it's less than it used to be, and
Mhm.
overall I feel more connected than and a lot of it has to do with identity. I think even in a community, a Christian community, a close community, because I couldn't be myself or be out a core part of myself, there was always that separation. And I didn't let myself, but even now that we're both kind of out in community Christian or gay communities, um, for me, I feel more connected in meaningful ways, but there's also periods of not being connected. So I don't know if that it's just part of life or if that, uh,
Yeah.
how that might change. It'd be interesting how that will change for you over your lifetime.
Mhm. Yeah, I think like I've thought about this a little bit, and I think it's like for me it's like so much of my life I like exiled a part of myself.
Mm,
So a part of myself felt really alone. And then over the years I've invited like the gay side of myself or the parts that I don't share with people because I think they might get rejected more and more into my relationships. And I think I also have been feeling less alone, but I think there's still so much of myself that I'm, even with people that I feel 100% safe with, that I don't invite into that relationship and I don't express that part of myself. So I'm thinking that is why I still feel alone sometimes, is because I haven't like fully integrated all parts of myself into relationships and express them. And I think I'm also wondering if just part of the human experience is to feel alone sometimes because we like it is yeah, maybe it's just part of it.
mhm. But it still sounds like overall you feel much more integrated within yourself and then also within a kind of authentic community.
100%. Yeah, I think it's like a night and day difference. Like I am so much more connected to people and so much more authentic. Like it's been each year has been continuing to get substantially better. Like
Mm.
and amazing.
You've talked about going home at some point and kind of living back with your family. I don't know, that's probably changed maybe somewhat, but be interesting to see when, if you do that with people that you were close to, or in some ways at a different phase of your life, and how that would, how that would go, how you would feel.
Hmm. Yeah, there's still uh like when I go home, I still notice myself like not being fully expressive of who I am, but I feel so much lighter and so much better being back home. And I think it's just like continuing to get more comfortable with myself. And um I like to put a lot of the responsibility on myself. I think it's a way that I've operated in the world where like if a relationship isn't the way I want it to be, like taking a lot of ownership of how I'm showing up.
Mm,
And I think that's like an empowering way to live. And um, no one in my family or extended family has like done enough to like for me to not be comfortable in my skin right now.
mm,
So
mm,
I think that yeah, it's a good challenge.
mm. Good. So as we begin to wrap up here, just as you think about so these first two kind of coordinating points, the C and the O, are more foundational to some of the work around creating a good life project or a project that you can focus on. Um, but anything you think of that, I don't know, do you have anything in mind in terms of a project that you might begin to, and this will evolve and change, but just any thoughts you have at this point?
I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is like some type of like written work. Like I really enjoy writing and I think like that would just be something that would be amazing for me to just like have like a big goal and write about like my experience as like a closeted gay man and like express myself. I think I've kind of fallen off like expressing myself publicly,
Mhm.
which I think like posting to like Substack or my Instagram and getting back comfortable and like expressing my truth could be like just like that's like the first thing that popped into my mind of like what
Okay.
I want.
So expressing yourself in some way, whether it's through like video or written form, or you think more written than.
Yeah, I really like writing. Like there's something fun about doing a video. Um, and also I think just there's something therapeutic for me about writing and I like have a dream of being a writer or I want to be a writer. So
Mhm. Okay. And so what can you draw from this origin story experience? Anything at all that you've kind of written about or picked up that you could take with you into that potential project?
I mean, I think well hearing like a shared experience of feeling like lonely, and that's like I think that's a common theme for a lot of gay men is like
Mm,
this feeling of being alone and like not being able to really reach out to anyone like when they're in the closet, is just an experience that I think it could be helpful to share that and like share what I've learned about it. Because I like it's a little off topic, but like when I felt most like in flow and like doing my calling, it was definitely like my gay men's yoga group and just creating a space for like people for gay men to like express themselves and
mm,
show up for themselves.
mm. Did you say that's when you felt more
I feel like most in flow and like most uh just like content with myself.
like you were doing what you're meant to do?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. That's a good clue, and if, I'm sure
That
you've
is a
thought
good
of that before.
point.
That's a good thing to pay attention to.
Mhm, definitely.
All right. Well, next time we will get into more of the practical steps towards this compass process. And um, the M is what makes you come alive. So I've also in the videos, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, just besides in the videos, but to start generating a life list or come alive list again. I know you did it before, but just if you could do a fresh one
Yep,
and start doing that.
totally. I have 15 down
Okay,
and
great.
more to go.
Good, good. Sounds good. Anything else before we wrap up for today?
No, I think we covered it all. Um, yeah, I guess kind of just thinking about the next call to adventure and
Yes.
maybe touch on that next time.
Yeah, yeah, that's the other part of this is the heroic journey that you're on and seeing life in that way and how that in and of itself can be a boost to our life satisfaction, mental health, just framing our life as an adventure. So we'll get into that next time. So,
Thanks,
all
Dave.
right. Well, I'll stop recording and we can touch base a little bit after.
If you've made it this far in this video, just a little bit of review. We just explored the O in the Compass framework, which stands for origin story, which has to do with looking at the chapters that shaped you, the early messages about identity, faith, masculinity, and belonging, and the moments that still echo in your present. That's kind of the theme of what we talked about with Seamus. But here's the thing, understanding your origin story is just half of the work. And next time we'll get into the second part of O, which has to do with your heroic journey and how to reframe and reinterpret stuff that has happened to you and maybe where you're going next as this heroic journey that you're on. All the stuff that I do is based on research and science, so I'll share with you some articles and some research that suggests that if you look at your life as a heroic journey, that alone can shift your outlook on life and your mindset and give you a more positive, more meaningful, more purposeful outlook on life. So next time, part of this heroic journey is looking at challenges as thresholds looking at setbacks as maybe an initiation, and also looking at how meaning is often constructed through narrative, understanding your story. And one final note, if you're participating in the Compass Quest contest for the month of March, the official start date is next Sunday, I think, March 1st. I'm going to be introducing clues along the way, and I've already shared one clue in the previous videos. I'll remind you of that clue below so you can start to track it. But the first official clue will come out March 1st. And I think my next episode will be on heated rivalry, fan favorite scenes. So I'm going to integrate this Compass contest with some scenes from heated rivalry and fan favorites that you've told me that you've enjoyed. Remember, you're just collecting phrases, places I point you to in my videos or my Substack, and just collecting those clues that I give you. And then at the end of the month, you can submit those all together, and I'll pick names from the submissions and randomly, and then each of you, the top 3, will receive different prizes. So that's the goal. But I'm doing this for more than just a contest. It's really about introducing you to some positive psychology coaching research. It's about practice. Practice noticing what's going on inside you and around you. Practice reflecting on your past, your passions, and your purpose. Practice orienting yourself with intention and meaning. So thanks for tuning in again, and I will see you probably on March 1st when the next episode drops with more details about the next clue in the Compass Quest contest, as well as your heated rivalry polling favorites. I'm going to blend the two together, the contest clues with the heated rivalry fan favorites. So I'll see you next time. Thanks and have a great day.